Hey, you want to know something better than the last person you slept with? Topkats Rebel Connection. You're welcome. Topkats Rebel Connection. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Otis Q. Pate here on the Spreaker.com console at Spreaker.com/Topkats Airborne, coming to you today over the airwaves with some more edutainment. Medical errors, the third leading cause of death in the USA. But first, let's clear the air. Yeah. Medical error is the third largest cause of death in the United States, according to an analysis published Wednesday in the medical journal BMJ. In 2013, at least 250,000 people died not from the illness or injuries that prompted them to seek hospital care, but from preventable mistakes. According to the study, that number exceeds deaths from strokes and Alzheimer's combined and is topped only by heart disease and cancer, which each claim about 600,000 lives per year. The death toll from medical mishaps would be even higher if nursing homes and outpatient care were included, the researchers found. People don't just die from bacteria and heart plaque. They die from communication breakdowns, fragmented healthcare, diagnostic mistakes, and overdosing, said Martin Makary, a professor at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in Baltimore. And he's also the lead authority of this study. He goes on to say, collectively, these represent the third leading cause of death in the United States, adding that it is one of the most underreported endemics in global health. An earlier study estimated the toll at between 250,000 and 440,000 per year. Experts do not know the exact number of people who die from botched surgeries, faulty prescriptions, or computer glitches simply because no one is keeping count. Along with more than 100 other nations, the United States uses a system for collecting national health statistics recommended by the World Health Organization, also known as the acronym WHO or WHO, that does not keep track of medical errors. The absence of national data highlights the need for systematic measurement of the problem, said Mr. Martin Makary. Our study, well, it took the best science on the incidence of medical mistakes killing people in the delivery of care and extrapolated that to the amount of care that we administer, he said. The scope of the problem in the United States which tops the world in per capita spending on healthcare, is probably about the same in other rich countries, he said. As for the developing world, the situation is likely even worse. He goes on to say, well, I suspect that in Africa, poor quality medical care or preventable complications kill more people than HIV and malaria combined. While it is not realistic to expect the human error can be eliminated in healthcare, protocols and safety nets, quote unquote, can be put in place to track medical errors and reduce their numbers. Well, death certificates, for example, could ask whether a preventable problem stemming from the patient's medical care might have contributed or contributed to the death. But asking hospitals and doctors to self-report their mistakes without offering a higher degree of protection from possible prosecution is a tall order, Mr. Martin Makary acknowledged. He goes on to say, it is difficult to create an open and honest conversation around the problem of people dying from the care that they have received. And his article concluded, among other leading causes of death in the United States in 2013 were accidents, 133,000, diabetes, 76,500, influenza or pneumonia, 55,000, and suicide, 43,000, according to the National Center for Health Statistics, known as the NCHS. Now, I really think that is quite an article there. And because I'm basically, well, no, it's not basically, cut that out. Because I am reading from the article itself, it is necessary for me to make sure that I let you know that this article is from MSN.com in the health section. And I'll leave a link to this article on MSN in the description box. And it's via MSN. The origin of this article comes from Relaxnews, AFP. And as I mentioned, or at least I should have mentioned if I didn't at the top of the article's introduction, is that this article is from May 4th, 2016. Thank you for that article, Mr. Martin Makary and Associates. Now, I hope during those pauses and me referencing where this article is coming from, I hope that you actually thought about what was being said, because I think that those things are very, very alarming, considering that our country is a leading nation in so many areas. Our country is such a capable country. Our country is such a well-known country for ironing out problems and creating solutions. Our country is one that has gone to the moon, that has created the iPhone through the company Apple, of course, and one of my heroes, the late, great Mr. Steve Jobs, but nevertheless created in our country, as well as our country is responsible for air flight. Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, the Wright brothers. Back in the early 1900s, the very early 1900s is when the Wright brothers were able to achieve their goal and to get the public at large up to 45,000 feet. Well, and even higher than that if you talk about military jets. They're way up there in the stratosphere. And I can go on, et cetera, and I know you feel me, and hopefully you know in what direction I'm traveling with that subject matter, because with all of those accomplishments, what in the world do you think keeps us from being a lot more capable in the medical industry in our country? What do you think that keeps us from being a lot more solvent, a lot more safe, a lot more reputable? I mean, those statistics there were ridiculous. And before I roll on into more flow, what I better do here is just give you the definitions of a few words that they had in the article, like the word endemic, spelled endemic, endemic. Now, what I was going to do here is go back to this article where endemic was being used. But it was in the article, and it said from the beginning of that sentence, collectively, these represent the third leading cause of death in the United States. And I guess that's a bit backwards, but they were referring to cancer and heart disease along with the situation. And it says, it goes on to say that, adding that it is one of the most underreported endemics in global health. Now, endemic means native to or confined to certain regions or to a certain region, originating where it is found. And there was another one in there, but I think that I mentioned the meaning of that acronym, which was BMJ, British Medical Journal, which this information was compiled from, not in America, but in Britain. They are responsible for reporting this information, although it's connected to what the World Health Organization recommends, but there's really no records kept. So if nothing else, this is really just a hypothesis, an educated guess, because as the article said, no real records are being kept. And that is just unbelievable. Well, I think one of the main things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to find a way to encourage the medical institutions to be more safe, since we have no other institution or organizations to turn to for the medicine, or I guess even more specifically for health care, for injury, for diagnosis and prognosis, whichever one of those is the right expression. We have to depend on our medical institutions for that. So we're going to have to find a way to encourage the doctors and the whole organizations to find out what the problem is and how all of these errors can be decreased. At the very least, I'm sure you have some fantastic ideas, and that's where solutions start, is with ideas. My name is Otis Q. Pate here on the Spreaker.com console. And we're going to figure this out one way or another very, very soon. Thank you for joining me.
Just wait a minute, hold the phone. If we can just freeze this moment, then we'll never go home again. Let's take a ride, there's every road to roam. With the sea breeze to lead us, then we'll never go home again. Just take your time, and please take mine. Just take your time, and please take mine. Just take a little, or burn the light. My life is in your hands, I don't ever want the fire to stop. Just bring your pretty face and wear your best dress. Forget about the money, let's leave all this mess behind. Just take your time, and please take mine. Just take your time, and please take mine. We can call the hotel home, doesn't matter if we're all alone. No, 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 no. It's a hopeless slow dance where love is like a neon. It's a broken romance where love is like a neon. It's a hopeless romance where love is like a neon. Got a soul this slow dance where love is like a neon. Just wait a minute, hold the phone. If we can just freeze this moment, then we'll never go home again. Then we'll never go home again. Then we'll never go home again. It's a hopeless slow dance where love is like a neon. It's a broken romance where love is like a neon. It's a hopeless romance where love is like a neon. Got a soul this slow dance where love is like a neon. It's a hopeless slow dance where love is like a neon. It's a broken romance where love is like a neon. It's a hopeless romance where love is like a neon. Got a soul this slow dance where love is like a neon.
Topkats Rebel Connection can be found at Spreaker.com/Topkats Airborne. That's Spreaker.com/TOPKATSAIRBORN. In 2013, at least 250,000 people died, not from the illnesses or the injuries that prompted them to seek hospital care, but from preventable mistakes. And you know, since 2013, as this article was created, or the information was drawn from, more particularly, because actually the article was created on May 4th, 2016. It says that at least 250,000, which means that, as I alluded to in the first segment of the show, this is an estimate. So there's probably more than that. And when I just read that part right there, my light here in the studio flickered. And I would take that as in there's many more than being reported here. And I realized during the vibe session that it's a good idea just to elaborate on this article, because the more I read over it, which has been about 6 or 7 times now, the more I read over it, I realize the more that I need to be reading over it. So please allow me just to elaborate on this with you and clarify a few things. Like that number, which is 250,000, that number exceeds deaths from strokes and Alzheimer's combined. That is really, really deep. Combined is the key word there. And is topped only by heart disease and cancer. And heart disease, I believe, is number 1 and cancer is number 2. And right behind that, of course, is our topic, medical error. Incompetent doctors. Which means that these dire, very upsetting, reckless situations could be avoided. I mean, just think about how much 250,000. The death toll from the medical mishaps would be even higher if nursing homes and outpatient care were included. And I'm a person that worked briefly in a nursing home. As a matter of fact, back in the day, in London, when I used to live over in London, I used to work for an agency that called me for different jobs and stuff like that. Sometimes I would spend 3 or 4 days at a place, and other times I would spend 2 or 3 months at a place. It just depended on the contract that the agency had with the entity hiring from them, hiring worker services from them. And I know at nursing homes, there is a lot of crap, a lot of injustice, and a lot of criminal things that take place. Although I do have to say in the same breath that there are also a very large number of them that do an excellent job. But that's not the problem. The problem is the horrible things that do take place. Of course, we're thankful for the ones that don't have these issues, but we need to get these broken down, reckless ones up to par. And that's why Topkats Rebel Connection reports on these type of stories and other stories that need solutions, because situations that are already high and flying and going about everything in a grand way, there's no reason to elaborate on that subject matter. We need to turn our focus to the things that are broken so we can fix them. And this is certainly something that needs to be fixed. People don't just die from bacteria and heart plaque, it said. They die from communication breakdowns, fragmented health care, diagnostic mistakes, and overdosing. And that was from Mr. Martin Makary. Maybe you want to check out Mr. Martin Makary even more if you are a doctor, or if you are a person that plans on being a doctor, or if you're a person that's just interested in how you can be safe when you go to the hospital. Because I'm sure Mr. Makary has other information. After all, he's a professor, and he's from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in Baltimore, Maryland. But back to nursing homes, because I know many people who are about my age now, in their late 40s, who have parents who are in nursing homes or in assisted living care and things like that. Also in what they call outpatient care, what the industry calls outpatient care, the medical industry. So I know if you are like me, you are very concerned about these statistics, because nursing homes and outpatient care, that industry in itself is growing quite rapidly in our country. By the way, I would recommend to those of you who would like to be in a growing industry, or who likes to help people, then I would say to you, look into going into the medical industry or the hospice, nursing home, outpatient care, assisted living industry. They're all related. it is a huge growing industry. And I know that myself from taking care of business for my mother. She's doing pretty good, but she's been in better health care. She's doing pretty good, but she's been a lot healthier than she is these days. But she's going through, as many of our parents are going through, for those of us who are in our late 40s, that many experience at this particular age. So I'm very concerned about that. People don't just die from bacteria and heart plaque. They die from communication breakdowns. Isn't that something? We have all these forms of communication, computers and cell phones and all type of ways of communicating, fax machines and modems on computers to send faxes, all type of things, writing letters. And that is a problem. You see, a lot of this to me seems not only avoidable, but liable. Because no one's perfect, of course, but there has to be some individuals who are held responsible, if for nothing else, to give encouragement and a sign, a very serious sign that either you are going to be up to par in your job like you're supposed to do, or you're going to lose your job, and or you may be liable for charges. The other thing is what they were saying is fragmented healthcare, diagnostic mistakes, being diagnosed wrong, and of course overdosing, where a patient has been prescribed the wrong medicine and they've overdosed, or it's conflicted with other medicines that they've been taking and it's overdosed them. I mean, this is absolutely heart-wrenching to me. At the very least, my head is actually spinning right now, just looking back over this article, even though I've read it, as I said, quite a few times since I compiled it in my tablet here. I've read it quite a few times, and it's just really incredible.
Topkats, Rebel Connection.
It says here, along with more than 100 nations, the United States uses a system for collecting national health statistics recommended by the World Health Organization that does not keep track of the medical errors. They do not keep track of the medical errors. The absence of national data highlights the need for systematic measurement of the problem. Our study, it says, took the best science on the incidence of medical mistakes killing people in the delivery of care and extrapolated that to the amount of care that is administered. Again, what I'm doing is elaborating on this article, because within this article is just so many points that I'm going to leave the link for, that you can go and see yourself. Maybe you might want to print this out. And I have to say, if you've been affected by any type of malpractice or medical errors, I would like to give you my condolences, because I know that even in the United States, when we're talking about these type of things, it is really something else, because when you want to sue a doctor or a medical institution or what have you, it is pretty much impossible for most people, because it's so doggone expensive to have a lawyer represent you. Because as you know, lawyers charge on the average $250 an hour. And if they have to go to court for you, they charge you for the parking space. They charge you for every single thing that they possibly can. And that will deplete your bank account. That will empty your pockets. And ladies, your pocketbook real fast. $250 an hour. And that's one of the things that keeps this situation ever growing, because people aren't able to take part in lawsuits. Maybe it's a good idea to do class action lawsuits. And I'm suggesting this. I'm suggesting this because something has to be done. These statistics are absolutely outrageous. And the very fact that no one is even checking, they don't even keep track of medical errors, although they follow what the World Health Organization says, that to me is totally inexcusable. So this is why I move directly to lawyers, because if we're not getting our local officials or our senators or Congress people involved in this very, very serious situation of malpractice, I would call it, but they say the article says medical error, then I don't know what else to do besides to encourage you to do what I would do if I could, is get other individuals together so there can be a class action lawsuit. You can go online to use your Facebook account or research it in different, places online. There's probably forums and chat rooms with people who have experienced medical errors and are crippled or looking at death directly as a result of some type of horrible thing that was, quote unquote, accidentally done to them. But when you start looking at these type of statistics from such professionals as the doctors that we have, which we expect to be doggone good at what they do, again, I would say that it's unexcusable and something has to be done. And I'm sure that the doctors would feel the same way if their parent or their loved one had been killed by medical error. While it is not realistic to expect that human error can be eliminated in healthcare, protocols and safety nets can be placed to track medical errors and reduce their number. Again, I am elaborating on the article from MSN because it is so important to make sure we get everything out of this particular article to wring it out, to squeeze it all out. Because Professor Martin Makary took the time to put this together, and he also slid in a solution in there, but I don't know if you caught it. And that's what I was going over again right there at the end of that vibe session with Seppuku Bot. Seppuku Bot is the name of the track, and Decktonic is the name of the producer. And by the way, before that, the group that was played with the vocals, I forgot to say, and that was from the Copycuts with a song called Lovers Like Neon. But Professor Martin Makary slid in a solution. And he says, while it is not realistic to expect human error can be eliminated in healthcare, protocols and safety nets, quote unquote, can be put in place to track medical errors and reduce their number. You see? He said death certificates, for example, could ask whether a preventable problem stemming from the patient's medical care might have contributed to the death. And he goes on to let us know, just in case you forgot, because I know sometimes you may forget, even though you just heard it. You just heard a person read something or say something. Well, at least that's how it happens to me, especially when I start thinking about what's being said. He says here, but asking hospitals and doctors to self-report their mistakes without offering a higher degree of protection from possible prosecution is a tall order. It is difficult to create an open, honest conversation around the problem of people dying from the care that they have received. The problem is the doctors being upfront, outside of them not being careless. The problem is the doctors being upfront because they want a higher degree of protection from possible prosecution. Because they know exactly how terrible that is, not happening every so often or every blue moon, but to the tone of approximately 250,000 people per year, and that's more than deaths. That number exceeds deaths from strokes and Alzheimer's combined. There has to be a solution placed to this, placed on this, placed around this, under this, over this. And it needs to be done very, very soon. I have to tell you, I do not like, for the most part, reporting on issues and topics like this, but I realize that it has to be done. And if you're like me, I would rather know about a situation than not know, even if it's something that's not very, buoyant. It doesn't provide high energy. But at the same time, I do know people who are very much provided with a high resonance level from hearing about things like this, topics like this, situations that have to be tampered, that has to be governed, got under control, healed, a solution found for. They get encouragement from that. And so, I don't know, maybe you are that way, but as for me, I would say it's about 75-25. I'm 75% that way. But all in all, I just wish issues like this didn't exist in such abundance in our country. Our doctors are supposed to be the best in the world as far as I'm concerned. And of course, there's going to be mishaps and mistakes sometimes. But this is beyond sometimes. And that is the reason why I have to let you know about this. Medical error, the third leading cause of death in the USA. Wow. Here in June 2016, there should be another article coming out if it hasn't already come out. So as soon as that article comes out, I'll go ahead and snatch that up for you and make sure that I bring that to you here on the Topkats Rebel Connection. So we'll let that
let that marinate.
Yeah.
And let that settle in. Let that run all through your mind before we begin again.
Right.
Now let that marinate.
Yeah.
Now let your thoughts be free. 'Cause that's what I want when you come to chill with me.